So it's January. I was going to make a video at the end of last year, but that got delayed because the case arrived with a broken clasp on the bracelet, so that's coming after this one. So this build is inspired by, well, just a bunch of mods that were shown on the Seiko Mods subreddit. Seems like a lot of people are doing this one, and so after seeing them over and over, I just thought, you know what, I want to try it. So I set for a notification on Watch Plaza when they get in one of these SRPD31 dials that's typically used in the Overlander builds, that I would just buy it whenever it comes in stock. It came in stock the next day, so here we are. Initially, I went through a whole bunch of cases looking to see if I could do anything that had a 3.8 crown position, because that's the crown position of this dial, and I didn't fancy removing the dial feet this time. That being said, ultimately that didn't happen. I thought about going for an SKX013 case, and I even looked at some aftermarket ones on AliExpress that came with a pilot's bezel on it. But I just kept looking at the different chapter rings and thinking, you know, even if I go for a plain one, is it going to look a bit off? Is it, you know, going to shrink the dial? And I didn't want to deal with that. So ultimately I decided to go with the Namoki Alpine case, which, albeit is a bit pricey, but it does look fantastic, as you'll see in this build. And later on in the conclusion, I will just address why it costs what it costs, because I was curious about that myself, so I asked them and they gave me some reasons. The downside for using this case, of course, is the removal of the dial feet, because it's a 3 o'clock crown case and it's a 3.8 crown position dial. So yeah, another build where I have to use dial dots, but it is what it is, so whatever. The upside is that I just thought that the compass chapter ring looked really neat, and in the SRPD31 it has one of those anyway, so I thought, why not go with that and see how it looks? And, you know, spoiler, it did end up looking pretty fantastic, so I look forward to showing you that. So, the dial. Like I said before, I got the dial from Watch Plaza. I did see some aftermarket options on AliExpress. I just took one look at it and thought, no, it just doesn't look right. And then as soon as I saw a build picture with an OEM dial in there, I thought, I've got to get the OEM dial. It just looks really good. And as you'll see again later, it really does. Then, of course, for the hands, because we're doing the Overlander build, the typical set. Everybody was using these, so I went on AliExpress and bought a couple of pairs of these. I bought 2 sets of these hands, and I bought them from different sellers because some of the pictures made the loom look like it was glowing more blue than green, but they were both identical. The second hand was a slightly different rectangular shape on the end there, the counterbalance end, but you know, they're pretty much the exact same hands. When I switch to the top-down view, I'll give you the usual disclaimers, but yes, Namoki sent in the parts for this case and the movement as well as a rotor screwdriver. Let's just get straight into looking at the parts, and then I'll show you how I re-loomed the hands and the experimentation that went on with that, because I tried a few things, including mixing a bit of coffee into the loom when re-looming them, trying it with paint, just because that's what I had on hand. Honestly, I'd recommend, if you're just going to re-loom them, get some pigments instead that will dye the loom the correct colour. That'll save you a lot of time. But ultimately I ended up baking the hands, and yeah, just to, if anybody's going to skip to the end, I re-loomed the hands and then baked them in a toaster oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 1 hour and 20 minutes. Your mileage may vary, of course, depending on your toaster oven and the loom you use, but that's how I did it. Anyway, with all that being said, let's get into the build, shall we? So, we've got some parts here. Now, before we get into it, I want to just mention, full disclosure here, these case parts, this bracelet, and this screwdriver here that is used for changing rotors, I contacted Namoki Mods and asked them if they'd be willing to send that in, and they agreed. I didn't have to pay for them, and I don't have to send them back, but this is not a paid review, and none of this video has been reviewed by them before this has been posted. And this dial and these hands, I bought these with my own money. Also, if you're wondering why this is on the table, this is a gold date complication. It's actually for a 3.8 crown position, but I've got this here because I wanted to show that it doesn't match, and so I'd rather just have it be white to match the date window frame. Firstly, this is an OEM SRPD31 dial. Got this from Watch Parts Plaza, although they might have changed their name now to Watch Plaza. I couldn't find the receipt in my emails, but I think it was around 70 euros. So here we have a typical set of hands that you would see on an Overlander build, and I have re-lumed these with blue lume to match the dial because the dial has a blue glow. I then baked them to darken them to make them the yellow colour or the sort of tan colour that the indices on the dial are. And after I've shown off these parts here, we'll go into me re-luming the hands because I did record the process, or at least some of it. This is a movement rotor screwdriver. This is a black rotor that I got on AliExpress. So it was about 20 quid or so, maybe 22 quid. I'll put the price up on the screen as well. And it's very nice. I did get this out and check it when it first arrived. Really nice details on it, actually. We have the, what I assume is the case, and the Caseback. That nice low profile, wide open piece. Caseback gasket. We've got the case in here, and this is the Alpine style case that they've got with the extra complication for a rotatable chapter ring, which is like a compass. I thought it would go really nicely with this dial because the SPRD 31 also had a compass chapter ring in it, I think. I'll put up a picture of it anyway. As you can see, there are 4 holes, and what we do is the bezel and the glass are one piece, and you put them on and screw them on top with 4 screws. So that's going to be really interesting to do. And we're going to do that first because then I can use the dial dots to get the dial on here and align it properly. Yeah, this looks like the, yep. There's the 4 screws. This is going to be the crystal and the bezel. Then we've got an NH36 movement with the black kanji calendar plates on it. It says on Namoki's website that these are regulated movements, so that's nice. And it did come with this stem here. I just took it out so that we could have a look at the movement. And this is just another set of hands that I re-lumed. I did these first. It was the experimental stage, and it went so well. I then re-lumed the backup hands, and they turned out even better. So these are the ones I'm going to use for the build. But just in case anything goes wrong, we have another set. Before I get into the build, let's get into re-luming the hands and the process that went on with that. So this is the SPRD 31 dial, and as you can see, the indices are they're not just white, they're sort of tan. I need the hands to match, and I bought these hands as per the typical Overlander builds that you see. And I've actually got 2 sets of these, just in case something happens to these. I figure I'm going to try to re-lume these, and if they don't look good or I don't do a good job, I have the other hands to fall back on. So as you can see, that's green lume. When we look at the dial, you can see it's blue, and I just so happen to have some blue lume powder here. As you can see, that glows blue. I'm going to re-lume these hands with the blue lume that I have here. And then to make them tan, I've got just a little mixture of coffee here to add a little bit here or there until I'm satisfied with the colour. We'll see how it goes. The first challenge is to get the lume off of these because I can't just throw them in acetone because they've got black paint on them and I don't want to get rid of that. So we've got to go very careful and scrape it off a little bit at a time. Oh, I think we've got it. It's come off in one big piece. Almost. That's nice and clean. So that one's worked out nicely. I'll put that to one side. Now I can flip it over. And then gently, very gently, I'm just going to stab into the center to sort of press it up. And I think that's going to come away now. Yeah, look at that. It breaks away in a nice clean sheet as well. Excellent. Looks fine. We can re-lume that now. Doesn't quite want to come off. Have we ruined it? No, we haven't ruined it. Hopefully that's clean enough, and when I put the new lume on you won't even see it. The actual mixing compound here has gone bad. Fortunately I have another lume set. I think that consistency's good enough. So now I'm going to add some coffee by just getting some lume on here, dipping it in this coffee mixture, and then adding some drip by drip. Let's mix that and see how that looks. Gosh, it's gone grey. It's nasty. I might actually not use that at all. I might, could I mix acrylic paint with it? So what I'm going to attempt to do here to make this tan is to get a little bit of this raw umber acrylic paint and a little bit of this yellow ochre and put just a tiny amount in there. So there's the brown paint, and I've barely, it's not even a drop that I've put in there. It's like a smudge on the end of the stick. There we go. See how I've put tiny amounts in there of each one? Hopefully that's enough to mix the lume without compromising it. It's definitely made it darker. Let's try some peach as well. Just a hint of it. I'm just using this paint because it's what I've got. I don't have any pigments. I mean, it's definitely made it a darker colour, but it's like really dark. That'll do. That looks fine. I think it looks alright. A bit shiny at the moment, but put that in there. There they are. All three of them are lumed. Let's hope it worked. It still glows in the dark. Definitely greyer and yellower, like a greenish yellow rather than a warm yellow. So while it's not terrible, I think I'm not going to bother trying that again. We're going to go to the third method, which is re-luming them and then baking them. I feel like I've mixed metal fragments or something into this. I don't like this. Make a new lume batch in another container like this. That looks good. One. That looks fine. I think that's good. There, so now they're all in there, protected and re-lumed with the blue lume. Yeah, they didn't turn out too bad, did they? And they glow blue like the dial now. So now we'll try baking them to see if they get a patina. So I crumpled up a piece of tin foil and then flattened it out so that I can put these on here, because that way it's not a flat surface so they can't potentially get stuck. So they're going in a sort of off-white colour. We'll see what they look like when they come out. With this first test, I didn't want to risk damaging the black paint that was on the hands, so I baked them at a low 110 degrees Celsius for 3 hours, and when that didn't change much, I baked them again at 150 degrees Celsius for 45 minutes. And I was so pleased with how this turned out, I decided to relume the backup hands as well. That's one. Actually got that in one sweep, I love it. We'll let these dry and then I'll bake them. So before I bake these, I thought I would show you the difference between what they look like before and after they were baked, now that we have 2 sets of them. So, as you can see, there's quite a difference. And I'm going to try these at 180 degrees Celsius for 45 minutes. So, now that that's out of the way, let's get this case put together first. There is the case. I will try to get the dial aligned with this as best as possible, but at least I've got leniency with the chapter ring there so that it doesn't have to be exact. I can adjust it. So this is the mechanism here. You've got this crown with a little cog on it, and then under here you've got a whole bunch of teeth that it moves along with. Put it in and it just sits in there. It doesn't slot in or anything, it just sits, it rests in there. And then I'll try my best to line up the holes that are under here with the holes on the case. So I'm just going to rotate it till the holes show up, and there they are. You can now see the screw threads down the bottom in these holes here. See? There. I like to reverse thread it so it pops in. Make sure those screws are nice and tight. That's so cool. What a neat thing. I know it's simple, but I really like that. I think this compass chapter ring is going to look fantastic with this dial. So now that we've got the case done, we can move on to the dial and hands. I'm going to use this paper from the case here, and then I will lay the dial down on top of it to remove the dial feet. Because this dial comes from a 3.8 crown position case, and the case that I'm using is a 3 o'clock crown. Got some pliers here. I'm just going to grab it and then wiggle. There we go. 2. And don't forget to wear eye protection when you do this. Very important. Protect it while we put the dial dots on the movement. Let's make sure this works. Yeah, look. The cog has been dislodged, so I'll have to get that off. There we go. The cog is just stuck on there. Get off it. Still on backwards. You've done that the wrong way around. Let's see. There we go. That's moving nicely. That's it. That's now snapped in. There. Must have been jostled about in transport. So next I've got some M3 adhesive here. This is just a bezel insert ring, and I'm going to cut this into little strips as I've done before and put 4 of them on here for the dial to stick onto. There, don't want to remove that cover just yet. That one went on nice and easy. We can just move that over. There you go. You can prod them and adjust them when as needed. There we go. That's a shame. See it just above the Saturday. No, that's a little divot in the plastic. That's a shame. Alright, let's get the dial and put it on. Sunday the 7th, we're aligning it. I mean, that's pretty bang on. We don't actually need to worry about where it is in the case because the chapter ring will just align to it. So the next thing is to put the hands on. Let's do the natural date change. There it goes. That looks aligned to me, so we're going to press that down. Looks fine. Right, that is aligned. Let's press it on. There. After the re-luming process, the hand isn't quite straight. So while there is like a minuscule gap underneath, I am going to do the dial protector thing just to give the gap a bit more. Perfectly fine gap there. Alright, that's on. But I want to make sure that one, it works, and then I can align it with the others and see how far I need to push it on. Oh, there it goes, ticking away. It's a bit high, so we're just going to press it to make it go a bit further down. Let's use the Namoki tool, shall we? When I was re-luming the hands, they may have been curved slightly, so we're going to do the same thing with this just to make sure that it's straight, because it's tilted down a little bit. That's better. Yeah, that's fine. It's doing the usual thing where, you know, the hour hand has a slight bit of give to it, as you can see. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, minute and a half before. That's fine. Yeah, really nice dial and hand combination this. And it really made the difference baking the hands in the oven to get it to match the tan colour of the indices on this, that sort of faux patina look. I don't generally go for faux patina, but I want the hands to match this dial, so in this case, we've gone for it. While we're here, I'm going to replace the rotor now. This is the screwdriver that Namoki sent in. There we go. There we go. That has now come out. There. That is a lovely rotor. Love those lines on there. And the stem just comes free. There. Right, let's put it in the case. Make sure that it's in properly. There, that's better. That's in the case now. And then the chapter ring can simply be aligned to it. Oh, that looks so cool. Oh, you know, the rest of the process kind of stresses me out, to be honest, but this bit, when it's in there and it looks like that, that looks so good. Right there at the 9 o'clock, on the edge, at the 9 o'clock, look, and then watch this. See, that's why we didn't get it out, because it wouldn't come off with the air puff. I have to go like this. What the heck is that? Why won't it come off? I mean, I got most of it, but there's like a tiny bit. That's so weird. I wonder if that piece, whatever that was, scuffed the dial. I reckon that that'll be hidden by the chapter ring. We better hope it will, because that isn't coming off. There you go, there's your first look at it. That looks so good. Wow. Okay. Let's do the stem next. I'm going to put the stem on the crown and put it in. Yeah, that'll do. How much is that? I'll take off 6mm. There, that'll do. So that's how much we took off. That's how much we've got left. And you can see there's still a bit of marker on there, so I'm going to put it in this jeweler's pin vise, or watchmaker's pin vise. And you can see, based on the dirt on that, look, that it is taking off material. So I did fit the stem to this and everything seemed fine, but the threads were catching when trying to wind the watch. So I cut a second stem, the longer one here, and here's the final measurement. It's 15.41. We can get rid of this one. And we're going to put some Loctite on here and put it in the case. There we go. Far more than we need, obviously. Hold it nice and tight. Dip that in. There we go, there it goes. And we can use Rotor to wipe off any of the excess Loctite that squeezes out. Look at that. It's gorgeous. Oh, I'm so glad I did this. I like that. Gosh, that looks fantastic. And I love that the red Sunday matches the red North on the chapter ring. Oh, that's so cool. Okay. We reverse thread it to make it seat it first. I like that black rotor in there. It's subtle, but it's, you know, the lines on it really do look nice. There we go. And there is a smudge on the bezel. Just a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on a Q-tip. I'm so glad I went with this case. It's worth it. If this is the look you want to go with, it's worth it. Especially because, you know, you can just change the alignment of the... It's a little bit stiff going backwards though, I will say that. It's not... Doesn't feel like it likes going backwards. But anyway, there it is. Now it's time for the bracelet. Let's check the clasp is okay, because I did have issues with a clasp that I ordered from AliExpress recently where it arrived broken, where this piece had actually come out, but that looks fine. Clips nicely. That's a nice snappy... That's good. I like it when the clasp has a good action to it and it doesn't feel sort of awkward when it clips down or pops in. I like it. No issues with that screw. It wasn't seized up or stuck in there or anything. There we go. So these are the ones, the screw is on the end and then it's going into a pin here, so it's one of those. Yeah, no problems there. No problems whatsoever. Really don't want to come out that way, does it? Let's try this one. Whoa! Fired it straight towards me. There we go, that's better. There we go. There we go. There we go, that was easy. I've had some trouble with getting the spring bars in some cases, so it's nice when it just pops in. Let's see if we can do this without having to take it apart. There we go. And that has just popped in. Moment of truth. Oh, wow. I wasn't sure if it was going to be bulkier than this, but that is actually a really nice... Gosh, that looks nice. I like the brushing on this. Do you know, I wouldn't mind a version with a polished middle link, though. It's a very nice fit. It's a bit snug, so I might add an extra link to it and then just come down on the micro adjust. But there's your preview of my Overlander build. Gosh, that's such a handsome looking watch, isn't it? This is what it's all about. All the stress of putting it together and hoping that your hand doesn't slip to get to this point. Oh my goodness, that's beautiful. It looks really good, doesn't it? It just... Oh. Baking the hands absolutely ties this build together. The fact that they match the dial. And yes, they match with the loom shot as well. Look at this. And then there they are in the dark. It's perfect. It's it's perfect. Those red accents on that chapter ring match up really nicely with the red Sunday on the date complication. Just really ties everything in and makes it look really nice. And speaking of the chapter ring, it's quite convenient because not only does it look nice, but because it's adjustable, you don't have to try so hard with aligning the dial because you have to remove the dial feet and use dial dots. You can just get it aligned around the date window, you know, judge it by eye, and then just adjust the chapter ring afterwards. And if you haven't done a terrible job, then it will probably look quite good. And yeah, it just makes life a little bit easier. I enjoyed building in this one as well. The bezel and crystal come as one piece, and they've machined the case so that you screw the bezel in from the back of the case with a gasket. And it was easy, it was simple, and you know, I haven't done a build where you have to do that, so I thought it was neat and enjoyable. And if you ever, you know, that after you put it in the case, if you see any dust under the crystal, you think, oh great, I've got to get out the Caseback tool and deal with that. Now you can just take out 4 screws, lift off the crystal, give it a clean, blow some air in there, you know, get it all spick and span, and then put it back on without even having to take the movement out, which is nice. I went on AliExpress and found a bracelet that was just under £14. It's cheap, and you can feel that it's cheap. It definitely, regrettably, feels cheaper than the Parnis bracelet, which is a shame. I was really hoping it was the same, so I could just say, get this one. It even comes with the oyster-style clasp on it, whereas the Parnis, they come with this ugly clasp. And it's a good quality clasp, but it just doesn't match the rest of the bracelet. So when I got my Parnises, I spent £5 and put a appropriate clasp on them. And they're just perfect for this case. And this one is pretty much identical. It's just lighter and flimsier, and the clasp itself has quite sharp edges on it. I may or may not file them down in the future, but I didn't want to take the bracelet permanently off of the Parnis, so I did leave this cheaper one on here, and it's fine. It's comfortable, it feels good when you get it on the wrist, it fits near perfectly, and it's less than a third of the price of the Namoki bracelet. And so the caveat being it's sort of a bit lighter and flimsier, even still, given that it's comfortable and it fits perfectly and it looks outstanding. I mean, just look at it. It really looks the part on this case, and it fits with literally no play in the end links at all. It's like this bracelet was meant for it. So I'm going to recommend this one, and I ask that any of you, if you have bought chronograph Daytona Oyster style bracelets that match the quality of the Parnis bracelets off of their Parnis chronographs, please do let me know. So next, the hands. Let's talk about the re-luming of the hands, because this was a big thing for this build. This was like one of the main reasons that this is, you know, me trying to elevate it above a sort of standard throw the dial and hand combination into an Explorer case and call it a day. These hands here, so I baked these hands in total for 1 hour and 20 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius. Feel free to, in fact, I'll put it on the screen what that is in Fahrenheit. The loom that I used, Blue Loom, makes it so that these hands match the dial perfectly. And it's the kind of loom that is white in normal light and glows blue in the dark, and that glue glow happens to match this dial absolutely perfectly. Again, here's a loom shot. It's perfect. It's actually perfect. And then when you couple that with baking the hands to darken them to match that patina of the indices on the dial, it's perfect. And it's really satisfying to see that. So moving on to some straps here, we've got this lovely dark brown leather strap with a butterfly clasp on here. I think it looks pretty nice on there, actually. This one seems to look pretty good on a lot of watches, you know, that sort of chestnut brown color, which is nice. Then I've got this tan leather strap that came on various Namoki watches. This actually goes really well with this. On other watches, it looks neat, but it's never jumped out at me like, yeah, that's a great pairing. It's just sort of fine. But with this one, as soon as I put the Namoki strap on there with this tan color and the threading on there, I just thought it looked really good. I thought it was a really good pairing. So if you've bought from Namoki before and you happen to have one of these straps in your box, throw it on there. It's not a bad little pairing. It looks good on wrist, as you can see as well. Then we've got a black and grey NATO strap with that grey striping down the middle. I don't necessarily think I would pair this strap with this watch, but I think it looks nice. It looks, you know, if this is your style, there's what it looks like. Here it is on a green NATO strap as well. I think this is a suitable strap as well, that sort of green outdoorsy vibe kind of colour. I think it goes well with it. Then we've got a black silicone strap here. This is actually a 19mm strap. It doesn't fit this properly, but this came off of my 6105 build that I did, the budget version, and I've since put it on a different strap, so this one was going spare. But I just wanted to show you what it would look like on a black silicone rubber sort of strap, and it looks fairly good on this as well, to be honest. So if you just want to throw a black rubber strap on it, this give you an idea of what it looks like. Here it is on the Namoki bracelet. It looks fine on the Namoki bracelet. We've got some nice brushing on there, you know. The clasp was nice. I thought it had a nice snappy, solid feel to it. Then we're looking at the caseback here. I just love the wide open display caseback, and as usual, this just looks fantastic on here. This is the slimline one with the big piece of glass on there. It's just nice to see that movement in there. And this rotor that I got on AliExpress, it was 22 quid, I think. It just looks really good. The lines on it look really nice. The shape of it's just a very elegant little rotor. And I chose black for this one just because, you know, the front of the watch has, you know, this matte finish black dial. So I just thought, let's put a black one on here and see how it looks. And it looks really good. So, I do want to address this because I saw a few comments on the Seiko Mods subreddit of people complaining about the price of this case, and, you know, obviously this is probably in comparison to some of the other cases that are significantly cheaper, and they come with a bracelet and a case back, whereas this doesn't. So I asked Namoki, how did you come to the price of this case? Just so that people have a better idea of it, because I was assuming it was based on like volume and complexity compared to other cases, like with the chapter ring complication and whatnot. So it pretty much boils down to the tolerances. They have to do tighter tolerances for the construction. They have to do custom tooling to build these cases. And then there's the complication with the chapter ring, and they have to make those chapter rings. And it's got 2 crowns, one of which, you know, has the gears on it. It's all about the complexity of the construction, apparently, and they've got custom tooling to do that. And it's their first batch. And so the first batch is a lot more expensive. Personally, I would like to see this kind of case for 150 quid. I would like to buy a case like this and have it come with a case back option and the bracelet. The truth is, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. If you want this case, you're going to buy it. You know, if you have the money to throw at it, you're going to buy it because you want it. And knowing what I know now, I'd be quite happy to buy this case, but I wouldn't buy the bracelet. I would actually buy the cheap bracelet that I've got here, maybe spending an extra 5 or 10 quid on the same bracelet that's maybe just a bit more sturdy feeling. This was 15 quid. I'd be happy to spend 20 or 25 quid to get what is a copy of the rock solid bracelet that came off my Parnis chronograph to put on here. And because that saves you money from getting a 60 quid bracelet, it kind of brings down the cost of the overall build, so it makes that pricey case a bit more appealing. But ultimately, if you want it, you're going to get it, and hopefully this video will show you whether or not it's worth taking that leap in buying the case, because it is a very nice case. It looks fantastic, it's neat. The only issue I had really, and it doesn't happen in everyday wear, I've noticed, but when I was moving it around a lot, filming all the B-roll shots, the chapter ring did keep moving out of alignment, probably because my wrist was bumping into the crown. But that doesn't generally happen in everyday wear. I wore it for over a week and it barely shifted at all, and it's just like occasionally adjusting it. Doesn't seem to move out of position much, which is nice. So let me give you my final thoughts here. This whole thing has come together really nicely with the stylings of that compass chapter ring. I just think really go well with this dial and hand combination, and then on top of re-luming them so that lume glows the same color as the dial, you know, in the dark, and then baking them to match that patina of the indices, just brings this whole build together. And then on top of that, putting on one of these oyster style bracelets at 20mm with that polished middle link, it just brings the whole build together perfectly, in my opinion. I just think it looks absolutely amazing. It feels OEM. It just feels like, this doesn't feel like a build. This feels like what they would have done with an alternative version of this watch with this dial, and I just couldn't be happier with it. Yes, it was a bit of a struggle going through all the experiments and whatnot, getting it all together, and having to take the hands off and bake them again, because it just frustrated me seeing it in different lighting conditions. The deceptive lighting conditions in the kitchen made me think that it matched, but it actually didn't, and it bothered me enough over the week that I took them off and baked them again, and I'm so glad that I did, because it looks perfect. Again, as you can see, just look at it. It looks fantastic. It really does. And you could do this in an Explorer case, you know, if you want to do the budget thing, and then experiment with the baking of the hands and re-luming. It is worth it if you can do it. And the hands are cheap enough that, you know, if you screw it up, you can buy some more because they're only like £5. I've seen some listings as low as £2. Yeah, and I'm just going to give what I guess would be a disclaimer. Everything I've tried here, you know, if you want to do this, do it at your own risk, because all the variances, different toaster ovens, different looms, etc., you might get a different result. So hopefully you end up with something really good. And if you do end up with something good, please go onto the Seiko Mods subreddit and post it, because I'd love to see them. If anybody else does their own Overlander build inspired by this video, I want to see them. I genuinely do. And although it can be a bit of a kerfuffle baking and re-luming and stuff, it is very satisfying when you get it done and the end product looks like this. So anyway, that's going to do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed this process. It was certainly interesting experimenting and baking the loom. I've never done it before and it was a bit nerve-wracking the first time, but ultimately it turned out pretty fantastic. And I hope that it inspired you and that you enjoyed going through the process with me. So thank you for watching. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.